Welcome to Mark My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Mark My Words. This episode is sponsored by GrowX Labs. Let's be real, leading a business is lonely. When the big decisions land on your desk, who do you actually talk to? That's where GrowX Labs comes in. Their executive decision support gives founders and execs direct access to a strategic sounding board. Someone who's been in the trenches and knows how to cut through the noise. Whether it's team tension, high-stakes moves, or just needing to talk it out, GrowX helps you move forward with clarity and confidence. Head to growxlabs.com/mark. That's GRWX labs.com/mark and book your discovery call. What if I told you that you could make more money in less time and have more fun doing it? That would be pretty amazing if those words were coming from me. Unfortunately, it is not coming from me. However, fortunately for you, since I always tell people that I am not the one who is always going to be proactive in creating and doing things. I am more the example and host. Fortunately for you, we have a guest who has quite an impressive resume and has come up with something called, he is actually the head unicorn, otherwise known as the founder of the Hapitalist. And my guest today, Russell Nohelty, he helps everybody optimize for joy and making money doing it. And there are 4 questions that matters to him, and we'll probably get into that in more detail, and I'll have him elaborate down the road. But 4 questions that matter in building a successful business, and the Hapitalist is designed to help those of you who want to know answer each one. How do you grow fastest? How do you operate best? Where are you currently blocked? What level are you playing at? I think that's a good methodology and a good place to start. Now, I did say that Russell has quite the resume, and frankly, if I read every word of text that I have for him as far as what he's done, basically, I'm just going to say, if you've dreamed of doing it, Russell has most likely done it. And I will just kind of summarize. He's written over 45 novels. He has given at least 120 different talks at more than 60 unique conferences, communities. He's been featured in over 200 podcast episodes across more than 150 unique shows. I almost said 151 because this would be at least 151. My goodness, he's produced audio dramas, narrated audiobooks, hosted podcasts. He also has a podcast as well called The Hapitalist. My goodness, if I keep rambling on, Russell's never going to get a chance to talk. Russell, welcome to Mark My Words. How you doing today?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy life to be here. And I've been excited about doing this episode ever since I connected with you. Love your vibe, and I just was immediately drawn in by basically the headline that I opened up with, and I can't wait to learn not only about what you do and how you can help us, but I'm also excited to hear about your journey because if we hop in the Wayback Machine, you took on a path in college, broadcast journalism and sociology. And we didn't even talk about this part before we hit record. You went to the University of Maryland. I didn't go there, but I lived in Maryland for years. So feeling that connection as well. And I know personally, I thought a lot about majoring in journalism, even having it as a minor. I wound up majoring in television production, which was also fantastic. But were you always kind of like drawn to journalism? Were you curious? Were you always a writer? Guessing you were always creative?
Yeah, so I wrote for my local paper, or no, I actually didn't write for it. I did photography for my local paper, but and then I was on my journalism team. I was the editor in chief of co-editor in chief of my high school yearbook. But really, what I wanted to do was make movies, and so I I was told so I got into NYU, not the film program, but the general ed program. And my options were go there or go to University of Maryland. And I had enough to go to the University of Maryland, but I did not have enough to like not take loans out and go to NYU. I've always been very conscious of not taking on more than I could pay immediately, or like that I was comfortable. I didn't want to be tied down to a thing for like the next 20 years. Like, I mean, I am very proud of my career, but I also am clear headed enough to know that it was not like it was not an easy task to like actually like make this whole thing work. So I went to University of Maryland and I majored in broadcast journalism, and I really enjoyed all of that process. And I was right. I think I was like we have a couple of back like a long time ago. They used to make these like poetry books for kids, and I was in a couple of those. Mm. Even when I was like 10 or 11. So I've been a writer for a long time, but mainly what I wanted to do was like photography or direct or something like that. And it just kind of worked out that the way you can have the most control of your career is if you write the project. And if you write a book, you don't really have to get anyone involved in it until the at the end. And you can I when I got kind of addicted to the actually shipping stuff, like actually like getting stuff through the pipeline, and that's not a thing that's easy to do in movies and TV, but it's quite easy to do. Not easy, but it's quite a bit easier to do. Making a movie is all of the hardness of making a book, but you also have to get like 50 people on the same train, whereas like a book is all of the hardness of creativity, but at the end of the day, like you control your destiny quite a bit more. So I've always been really interested I've always done journalism stuff since I was a kid, but I was much more drawn to the creative side of the industry, not the nonfiction side.
Well, for one thing, I can really relate to the struggle, especially the financial conundrum of going to like a bigger, illustrious school. Because I had dreams of going to like Florida, University of Florida. I had dreams of going to USC for a while, UCLA. I really wanted to pursue either something that had like more of a film route or even just like would put me in a better position television production wise. And ultimately, I wound up going to Kutztown University in Pennsylvania, which was also a really great choice. I don't know what their program's like today, but if you wanted to go into like broadcasting or journalism or something like that, Kutztown University, back in the day at least, was like a really good option. I'm guessing it's probably still a pretty good option, but that I can definitely relate to that, and I can also relate to just like the journey of, wanting to do like your own projects. And I can understand, I've dreamed. I think, I hate to say I'm not dreaming about it anymore, but we know that the entertainment business has changed a lot over the years. So I'm not really dreaming about like writing a show based on like my life or anything like that, like I used to. I almost think this podcast is kind of like serving that purpose. I know I've thought about maybe utilizing AI for something like that for the reason that you kind of brought up, where it's like hiring all those people, getting them on the same page, just imagining that sounds like it's harder than it even looks. So I can relate to a lot of like the journey that you just shared. Like uh you wind up, unless you get lucky, you wind up doing the kind of work that I know I've done, which is very behind the scenes. I mean, as far as like corporate, I'm obviously doing this now, which is a whole other story of how I got here. I never thought I'd be doing this, but that's what leaps of faith are for, I guess.
Yeah, it's well, on one hand, it's way easier now, right? Because like you can with the equipment that you are talking on and like and you can make a web series and put it on YouTube. But on the other hand, like it's a lot harder to get like a big thing mounted. So I've always idolized like independent film people who like did stuff for very little budgets and made it look great, like Robert Rodriguez or Quentin Tarantino or Kevin Smith. Like they were like the people that I was like, wow, you could just buy gear. I was like, did you know you could just put $30,000 on a credit card and make a movie? Then and like, look, you can just do it. And this is something that I think we are in an age of if you want to get permission, if you want to be endowed, if you want to be anointed that you can do a thing, it's much harder now. But if you just want to do a thing, it's so much easier. Like I just made this tarot deck and like you could just figure out how to do that. Like I made it myself with like things on my computer. Took about a month. I'm like writing a SAS program right now. And like you can just do things. But most people I don't think want to do things. They want to be told that they are good enough to do things. I'm not even convinced that people really like if I was like, "Oh, you can just make a movie," that people would be like, "Oh, good." I think most people just want to be told by someone that they admire that they're good enough, that they could do it, that like they passed all the tests. And like the tests have always been bull, but now they're actually like kind of worthless. Like what matters is the things you can create, and you can create anything now. And so to me it's like the golden age of creativity. Um especially if you don't live in America, especially if you like you can just do so much. And like the worst camera you get now is better than like one like the best camera that I had access to 25 years ago. So, yeah, I mean, I think that you just have to flip it a little bit. Like you just have to be like, okay, if you have to know what you want. That's like the first step of our joy loop. It's like you have to be attuned to what you want. And most people don't know what they actually want, and they do, but and they what they really want often is like permission, and permission is really hard to come by now. You just kind of have to do it.
I totally agree with that because we're living in an era where it's like we have all these tools that you can do it. You don't have to wait for permission or approval or anything like that. If I literally wanted to hang up this call right now and post like just whatever, I could do it. And you
Right.
would be probably a little irked because I cut the call early and we didn't finish the episode, which I would not do to you. But but that's the kind of like power that we have. And I think to add to what the sentiments that you're expressing, I also think that you need to have like the passion to do whatever project that you're doing. And I think sometimes you don't know you actually have the passion until you have that eureka moment, because that's how Mark My Words became what it is. Because up until 2019, 2020, I wasn't thinking about creating a podcast or content. It was entrepreneurs like you that I met at networking events who encouraged me and kind of like planted the seeds in my mind and told me that, hey, you know, have you ever thought about creating content? Have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And up to that point, I sold myself short. I was like, I'm a behind the scenes guy. Nobody wants to hear my voice. Nobody wants to watch me. Like, who wants to watch me? Who wants to listen? But these people encouraged me just enough to kind of get me motivated. And I just kind of took all that, discovered I had a passion, and I know I'm passionate about this. It's 6 years later, hovering around 200 episodes, and every time I tell myself I'm going to quit or I get frustrated, I always come back. So I feel like passion is a big key. If you discover something that you can be passionate about, give yourself that reason to hit record and create. That's half the battle, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I ask people is like, do you actually want this thing, or do you just want the validation or or like some bit of it, like the money or the power or whatever that thing is. And like, if you really want the thing, then there's no stopping you. And like, if you want the fame or the money or the something, there's better ways. So like what's happened in my career has been a lot of times where I thought that I knew what I wanted, but then I got that thing and was like, oh, no, I just wanted X. I just wanted the freedom. I just wanted the money. I just wanted whatever the thing is that comes with it. And, but like if you're the kind of it's a weird loop because like if you make the thing because you love it, you're more likely to get the ancillary benefits of it than if you make it for other reasons. So you yeah, it's interesting because there are the bear we I talk to a lot of people who think there are these high bearers. Like I could never make a movie, and I'm like, no, dude, you can. You just would maybe make a bad movie. It's like what are the but then like you could make a good movie later, or like maybe it would be a good movie. Like I don't know, but like I know that you definitely won't make a good movie if you don't make a movie. Like if you don't write a book, even if it's a bad book, then you zero chance you'll write a good book. And So I mean, so much of this is just iteration and network, and people always are like, well, it's easy for you because you have a network of people. And I'm like, well, how do you think I made that? I had like 15, 20 years of like doing this work and gathering people and like building community together. And and we're at a page where you can do that. But like, yes, you have to start from scratch. Everyone has to start from scratch. And most people rely on their human capital, their diplomas, their other things to speak for them. And so it's weird to be in a world where, like, these speak for you. Do you have these? Do you have projects that you've done? Do you have a portfolio of stuff? Because, like, if you don't, it's much harder to get the thing you want. But if you're the kind of person who just is like, I don't have to justify myself forever. Like, if someone wants to know what I think, I can just be like, go read my books. I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna when they ask me to like in a comment, they'll be like, why do you think that? I'm like, I just give you a link to my book. And then they're like, I don't want to read the. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you, dude. That's where it is. I have evidence. It's just locked in these books that I do not feel the need to justify myself to you because I already have it out there. And it's a very different way of thinking, right? Like, it's very different to say, okay, what I need to do is not develop my knowledge base. I need to actually implement and make stuff, and that will do more for me than anything else.
Well, let me tell you, I didn't come out of the womb hosting and speaking as well as I am today. Believe me, the first like 1 or 2 years of doing Mark My Words, while I had good guests, I had a good time, and I think I produced good episodes for the moment in time that it was. I listened to some of those episodes today. I'm proud of the work, but I'm not speaking like I do today. It was a lot different, a lot less confident, a little more and But to
Mm-hmm.
your point, and it was important for me to interject with just my side of the story because I've come a long way. I mean, I've come, like, basically, have overcome just selling myself short and saying, well, I don't have this, I don't have that, because I was born, with, certain obstacles and, nobody's gonna listen, nobody's gonna watch. Overcame that, overcame just being a rookie podcast host, and have I've gotten to a point, to your point, where I've had tons of guests now. The inquiries are not to toot my own horn, but they're just coming in as like pretty effortless, and that doesn't just happen overnight. You have to put in the time and the work and energy to get there, and I just love the way that you put all that, and I've lived it myself. I get it.
Yeah, well, and you said something about like all the things about saying you can't do it, and that's step two. So, like, the first step is you have to attune with what you want, what you actually want, and like that comes down to a lot of things, mainly radical acceptance. But then step two is once you're attuned, you have to see the opportunities. And you can't see the opportunities if you're always saying no, I can't, because like opportunities are falling like manna from heaven. They're everywhere. But like if you're like, no, I can't do that. No, I won't do this. No, that could never work. Then you are speaking your reality into existence. And you so I'm not saying you have to be like yes to every opportunity, but like I really work with people to try and take no out of their vocabulary altogether. And like I can't, I won't, like because I just know too many people who did, and I'm like, well, I don't, it's unlikely, but like nothing is no. Like the chance of you being hit by a whale in the next 5 minutes is very low, but it's not zero. Nothing is zero. And like we're only, even if it's zero, we're only talking about this reality. There would be a reality where you're a whale. And like then it's much easier to imagine you getting hit by a whale. So like what is like we are limited by the reality that we perceive, but the reality we perceive is different for every human. And if we can attune to what we actually want, which is very hard, and we can then see the opportunities and see the things as opportunities, then the rest of this becomes so much easier because we're not kneecapping ourselves. The world will kneecap you perfectly well without you doing it to yourself. um your support system may kneecap you, but like don't you kneecap you, because it takes two things. It takes you being very, very honest about where you are and your situation, and also completely delusional that you can change it at the same time. And like life is about contradictions, but like we've been living this contradiction forever. Like what does a first grader say the first day that first grade is over? Oh, I'm in second grade, and it's like, no, you're not. You're on summer vacation, but like you are still acting as if you're a second grader. But you didn't act as a second grader while you were in first grade. So, in the same way, like we have to be able to say, I'm in first grade now, but I'm gonna be in second grade. And like that is inevitable. Just like it is inevitable that that first grader will go to second grade, like it is inevitable that you will be the person that like you will be, because it's just like so obvious to me that like you're a balloon, and there's a lot of things that could prevent a balloon from flying in the air, but like you got to today, which means you have enough experiences to get to this day in your life, which means all of the things that you do filled you with experiences, and all you're doing is saying no. But it's like, dude, we drive cars. Like, we dig stuff out of the ground that is goop. We then process it. It then gets delivered to a gas station that we fill up in. And then we drive like chaos engine crazy things across the country. That is a wild thing. Like, to think you just couldn't do that. Yeah, like it's you getting where you want to go is as inevitable as me getting to the store in the morning, but you don't see it, and you can't see it while you are kneecapping yourself, and you can't see it when you don't actually know what you want, because then you'll be self-sabotaging. Both of those things are ways of self-sabotaging.
Well, I don't want to self sabotage this part of the conversation or kneecap us. I'm sure that what I'm segueing into, as bad as the segue is apparently, um, I want to just kind of take us into how you kind of like transitioned out of corporate America and into entrepreneurship. Because when I look at your history here just on like LinkedIn, it kind of like reminds me of my own journey until you started becoming an entrepreneur. And then we become a little bit different because you
Mm-hmm.
have gone to amazing places since then. Just tell the story about what made you decide to take the entrepreneurial direction and develop this amazing career that you have, and just amazing perspective that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I ever got into the corporate thing. Like, I've had jobs, but they were mostly in sales, which is like the most autonomous of all the kinds of jobs you can have. And I pretty much only had them to learn how to sell better. But like, I've had a lot of people in my life. Most of the important people in my life have always enabled me, which I appreciate. But Like people have always told me that there was a specific way to do things. And now I know that that's hokum and bubkiss. But back then I knew instinctively that it was, but I I have always been somebody who was willing to deal with the consequences. And so what people say when they say what they mean is when they say you can't do something is really the consequences aren't going to be worth it. And my response to that is the consequences aren't worth it for you. But like, I don't actually need money because I know how to sell things. So I know that money is infinite and that it will continue to come. So I am not persuaded by, oh, you'll never get a job. It's like, okay, is there an, like, what is the downside? Like that I understand. I believe deep down that like making the life you want takes radical acceptance and takes you being like, well, okay, but like I don't have any money now. So like what the downside is I'm not going to have money and do something I like more. Okay, that's fine, I guess. And like, I made decisions to like not have kids. I made decisions to like live where I wanted to, and like those are consequences of actions. But like, you can actually do anything as long as you're willing to realistically deal with the consequences. The problem for most people is they don't look at the consequences and then they just leap and do stuff and they're like, "Oh, that sucked." And if you go into something and say, "Well, this is going to suck. I'm probably not going to be an actor in my favorite TV show. Probably not going to get an opportunity to like I've never been published by Marvel or DC or Random House or any of that time, but like I've been published tons of hundreds of times. Like I've never spoken at like a TED talk, but I've spoken a bunch of other times and like TEDx might have to anoint me to be a TEDx speaker, but they certainly don't have to anoint me to be a speaker. Like, you may never be on iHeartRadio's like top 10 podcasts, but like they can't stop you from doing a podcast. And I think what we are taught, well, what we internalize is like just because if I can't be if I can't do a record by from Atlantic Records, I can't then there's no reason to do a record. What you fail to realize is like most things that get released by Atlantic Records don't sell. And like so if your thing doesn't sell, you probably are just the same as like most of the people who are on RCA Records. If your company fails in 10 years, before the 10-year mark, so do 80% of companies. So like we think we have this like main character energy syndrome, specifically in America, but just as humans, we're like, oh, if I can't be Mary Tyler Moore, then why even go into broadcaster? And you're like, but like a bunch of people worked on that show. Like you could never work on Mary Tyler Moore because like that show doesn't exist anymore. But like you certainly could work on a television show. Like you could be a PA, you could be an intern, like you could be a background extra. Like there's a billion ways to get onto your show. The problem is that you want it in the only and exact way that you want it, and you're not willing to take the consequences that go along with it because you may not even know them. But if you are if you know that most things fail and you know that like most success is failure and you know that like the likelihood of you getting what you actually your A goal is pretty low, but like the odds of you getting your C or D or E goal are pretty high, then you can do just about anything. Like you could do anything. You could do anything. Like almost anything. almost without question. You can do almost anything.
What you just talked about there is a lesson that I've learned in my own life because I had pretty lofty goals when I was younger. And I think I'm always going to have lofty goals just because that's how I'm wired. But I channel that energy a little differently because I think growing up earlier in my life, maybe in my 20s and 30s, I was dreaming of like I want to have my show on a major network. I'm gonna write the treatment. I'm gonna write the script and had all of these dreams. And one thing that I've learned just through my own career. So I've worked in television production for a little over 20 years, and the experiences that I've had have been like really, really cool. And I also want a sidebar that I love that you mentioned Mary Tyler Moore and the Mary Tyler Moore show. That's like one of my all time favorite shows. And just I love that show. But uh yeah, it's so for me, I tend to not like name stuff, especially where I'm working as a day job at this point. But I, back in the day, worked for a very well known home shopping network, not actually HSN, but the other one that I'm sure you all can probably guess. But that experience of working on a set and even just being close to some like bigger name people, maybe not the exact people that I would have wanted to meet, but had the pleasure of still like doing mic checks for them and just kind of being behind the scenes and being around it. That was an amazing experience. And I know that before I interned there, I was like, oh man, like, why do I want to do that? I want to do something bigger. I want to do something to do with sports or whatever. But I wound up doing it. It was actually my mom who kind of talked me into interning there. It was pretty close to home too, which was great. But I walked away from that experience with just a whole different perspective, a lot of respect for what goes on in that type of environment. And it helped me throughout my career because I've been very like behind the scenes, but I've had a lot of really cool experiences. And especially today where I'm at, it's like a dream job, even though I may not be, you know, an executive producer of a show that everybody's watching on TV or streaming. I'm just a cog in the machine. Not only am I doing something that's really amazing that not a lot of people get to do, but I'm also doing this and controlling my own destiny and making my own content. And I'm proud of it. I don't have to be on iHeartRadio. I don't have to be on like Sirius XM. I don't have to be, you know, on primetime TV. I'm doing something that fulfills me, makes me feel good. I feel good about it. And I have complete creative control with the exception of, just the other 50%, which is the guest. But that's great. Like, because I guess if I don't like what I'm getting back, I can choose not to release it. But I mean,
Right.
it's just wonderful to kind of experience all that. And everything you just said made me think of that. And I think what you were trying to say is just so true.
Yeah, I mean, you have the ability you live in a time when you have the ability to do a lot of things that most people could never do in the history of the world. but like most of it is going to fail and a lot of it is going to suck. I've been on a lot of movies. More days that not suck than are good. Like there's a couple of good days, there's a bunch of like long days, and there's like some sucky days in there. And like that's just kind of life. And so if you I talk with people a lot and we kind of go through their process and then I'm like, okay, great. So like your mark it's usually a marketing problem that they have. And I'm like, okay, great. So like tell me what you've done. And they tell me what they've done and I'm like, okay, but like that's it. They're like, yeah, I did post like once a day on TikTok. And I'm like, okay, well the people that succeed don't even succeed all the time and they post 10 times a day. 3 times a day, or like they're live for 2 hours at a time. So like what you're telling me is you've not done anything, and they're like, no, 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 no. It's like no, no, no. Like this is good news. This is really good news because like if you were doing a bunch and not getting any traction, then we'd have a different problem. You'd have a product problem. But like the truth is, you're not doing anything. So like there's no expectation for you to succeed, and like that's great. I make sure that people. So I have a couple. I have this thing that I say. I say you can either try to fix the problem and complain to me all you want, or you cannot fix the problem and you can shut up. And I don't care which. Like I am here to help you change the problem. I am perfectly happy to shut up and let you do whatever you want to do, but like you can't. I know the process that I go through, and I know you're not going through that process. I know that my process has been documented. So if you want to solve this problem and you're asking me about it, then what part of you thinks I'm going to give you other advice than the best practice I have written down? Because that is what I think the best process is. You don't want to go through that process. You want me to say you're a magical snowflake, but like you can both be a magical snowflake and I can still believe this is the right process to go through. So, um so yeah, it's we need to be able to look at something and see all of its warts, all of the problems, and still say, I want to do it anyway. And we don't do that as a world, as like a human race. We instead say, if I knew what it was, I wouldn't do it. And I said, then you shouldn't do it. If learning all of the problems of a system prevents you from wanting to do it, you should not do it because the system will still exist whether you look at it or you don't. And that is people. I have a book called Publishing is Broken, but it doesn't have to break us. I have a book called How to Thrive as a Writer in a Capitalist Dystopia. People say, why are you writing these books? They're such bummers. And I'm like, I don't agree. They're surveys of what actually is preventing you from having success. And you come to me and you think that like it's because something is against you, but like it's against everyone. Yes, there are systemic problems of like racism and sexism and ageism and ableism and all those other things, but like these are the actual problems. And like I know that these are the problems and I choose to do it anyway. And if you can't do that, you should not do that thing because it is going to consume your life. The industry that you are in is going to consume your life. It's where all of your friends are going to come from for most of your day. And if you can't say, dude, the stars of that shows are full of ego. They're so fragile and still be able to be like, but I still like that. That's okay. I'm fine. I'm fine with like that. Like, I'm fine that like a book is a hard to scale problem that is like race to the bottom pricing. Like, now I know, and I can like if I know that a book isn't meant to break even on ads for 5 books, I'm not going to start running ads until the book's on book 5. Or I'm going to run ads, and if it's not successful, I'm not going to beat myself up over it because there's no expectation for me to be successful at that point. So the question isn't, what can you do? The question is, like, what can you look at and still want to do? And, like, what are the conditions that you can reasonably expect success? And if you have not met those conditions, you should not expect, like with podcasts, you talked about podcasts. You said basically for 2 years you were not super, that's like about 100 episodes. Do you know how long it takes to develop your voice as a podcaster? It's 100 episodes. So like obviously, like you developed your, it took you 2 years to find your voice because it took you 2 years to record 100 episodes. And like that is just like par for the course. Like the average podcast has about 250 downloads. So if you're doing worse than that, then like, and you don't have 100 episodes, then like, you are not expected to have that. If you have 100 episodes and you're getting like 300 downloads, you're actually doing pretty good. You're doing above the average. If you have 10,000 downloads, you are statistically way, 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 way on the upper end of it. But like, if you are coming to me saying you've done 10 episodes of a podcast and you feel like you don't have your voice and no one's listening, of course that's true. That's true for every other person. So like, do you want to do the other 90 episodes or do you not? And that's okay. I have no stake in what you do. As long as you're not hurting yourself or somebody else, I actually don't care. I don't care if you make money. I don't care if you make a fool of yourself. I don't care. What I do care about is whether you're happy. That I do have a stake in. I have a stake in every person being happy. And, or at least content, or at least filled with meaning, or at least doing something psychologically rich for them. And that is the thing that most people don't have. That is the actual thing. There are a bunch of people who are just like you who just love podcasting. But there's a bunch of other people who do podcasting and they loathe it. But they're like, this is the way that I've been told to have success. And like, that is the problem. I can help you, someone like you, Mark, take the ember of what they have and make it a roaring fire, or take a fire that they have and make it even bigger. I can do that. I can help you actually find the success moment, like what actually feels like success to you. What I don't have any interest in doing is if you were like, I'm miserable, I got to keep doing this thing. I want you to know that that is just patently not true. There's this pervasive parasitic idea that winners never quit. But that is not true. Winners always quit. Winners almost always only quit. They almost always only quit everything that doesn't make them win. The reason why they are able to win is because they cut out all the things that almost kind of sort of worked, but didn't work. And they found the thing they could win at and they won. But everything else, they quit because you can only do so many things well. And like, you can only fall in love with so many things at a time. And it's really hard. It's really hard to have this moment where you are not doing something you love, but you are consumed by it because you are too successful to give it up. And so, if nothing else happens about this episode, just know you can walk away from anything if you are willing to deal with the potential downfall of it. You can walk away from literally everything. You could walk out of your house right now and go live in a yurt. You will probably go default on your loans. People will not like you. Your kids will stop talking to you. Like, your dog may run away. But like, you could do it right now if you wanted, as long as you were willing to look at that downstream consequences and be like, I'm okay with that. I would probably not think you're a very good person if you did, but you.
Well, first of all, episodes like this, people like you, they really are an example of why I love doing this show so much, because I feel like this has been a phenomenal conversation. I feel like we could go another couple of hours, which, as I promised, I'm not going to do that. I feel like we've really laid the groundwork, especially you, to kind of give everybody a taste of what the Hapitalist and what you are about, before I get into just giving you the floor to tell everybody how they can work with you, is there anything about the Hapitalist that has been left unsaid or about you that you want to say as a parting word here?
I don't think so. I'll say as my parting word that we think that joy follows success, but it is the other way around. It can only ever be the other way around. Success follows joy. Any success you have that isn't that isn't from joy is not success. And anything that you do that's joyful is more likely to lead to success than something that is not. And I would ask, just you think about if you're doing something, you're like, I got to get through this. I got to do this thing, even though I don't like it. Would you want to buy something from somebody if you found out how miserable they were making it? Probably not. Like, it would bum you out. So, even if the thing is not going to be the most successful thing, guess what? Only one thing is the most successful thing. You'll only do one most successful thing in your entire life. You'll do a lot of things that are from 2 to 100 that may be resorted, but like only one is going to be the most. But also, only one is going to be least. And it's probably not that thing either. So, like, we should give up way more. We should, when we're overwhelmed, say, how can I cut things? And we should look at ourselves and say, maybe not as I'm not as integral to this process as possible. Maybe I could extradite myself and get more time back. But mainly, if you are not happy, you can change that. It might take you blowing up a bunch of your life. It might take you fundamentally changing a lot about what's going on in your process, but you can be happy. It's possible. It's possible for you, and it's also possible for you, and it's possible if you're in a room with 3 people, you too. It just takes thought. And so that is what Hapitalist is about. It's about the moving and finding a little happy little pocket in capitalism where you can be happy.
Well, I'll tell you what, most episodes of this show that I do, when I leave, when I hit stop, when the guest goes on with their day, when I go on with my day, I am fully energized from pretty much the majority of these episodes that I've done. I suppose the ones that I don't feel that way about, you're not going to hear those episodes. But uh, I really, just from listening and talking with you, I know that I have found something that brings me a lot of joy. And I know it brings me joy because the past 51 minutes have just flown by. And it's because of awesome guests like you who bring a ton of value, great conversation, and it's a lot of fun for me. The least fun part is the part where I have to say, Russell, how can people work with you? How can they find you? And anything else you want to add?
So I have a podcast called Hapitalist and another one called the Six Figure Author Experiment. And I'm at hapitalist.com. I really don't have social media. I got a bunch of books you can read, but hapitalist.com is where you're going to be able to find the most up-to-date information on my practice. And I look forward to seeing you there. It's like capitalist, but with an H.
Indeed, it is. Once I made that connection, I was like, oh, I know how to actually pronounce that. So, just using those grammar, phonics, English skills, I guess. But good for you to spell that out for us, because I was a little lost at first on, like, what is that supposed to be? But anyway, Russell Nohelty, thank you so much for being on Mark My Words today. I had a blast. I could talk to you for hours, but I don't want to hold up your day and I guess I shouldn't hold up mine. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It was great to be here.
Awesome. Well, I am the host of Mark Schmidt. I am the host of Mark My Words. I'm Mark Schmidt. And this was Russell again. Thank you for being here. And I will see you soon on another episode of Mark My Words. Bye for now. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.